Eric packed a small bag of essentials from the modest farmhouse where he lived. He'd only had it for a few years, finally earning enough money as a guard for the local mayor to move out from under his mother's roof. He wasn't a particularly adept guard, in truth. The goblins had slipped by and taken Gabrielle no fewer than 3 times on his watch. In fact, were it not for his and Gabrielle's childhood friendship, the mayor likely would have dismissed him long ago. Thankfully, the mayor knew his daughter had few friends, so he'd deigned to keep Eric on the payroll, quasi-ineptitude and all. Eric slung the knapsack over his shoulder and adjusted his armor. He was already exhausted. Sleep had eluded him the night before thanks to his bone-quaking levels of worry. Eric slipped his father's old sword into its sheath and checked his reflection in the mirror. When he'd become a guard, Eric had expected to see himself the way he saw them, heroic and stalwart, warriors in their shining armor. Instead, he thought he looked like a child playing dress-up, his ill-fitting armor cinched tightly around his narrow frame. Eric's mother often spoke of his father, the great paladin and unconquerable swordsman. Eric supposed he must take after her side of the family, though, a line of not unimpressive seamstresses and tailors. He looked around his home one last time, then set out to bid farewell to his mother. He hoped that the next time he came upon this cottage, it would not be mere ashes under the king's heel. Gabrielle didn't bother with goodbyes, since her parents wouldn't have let her go anyway. It was all well and good for men to strike out alone, but there was no way her family would tolerate a lady leaving her father's homestead before marriage. She packed a sack of rations and changed into her horse-riding outfit once morning broke over the horizon. After breakfast, she gave her mother a hug and her father a kiss, and told them she was going to spend the day riding the horses. Gabrielle adored riding, and she often went late into the night with her equine friends. When she didn't come home, they'd be annoyed but not worried. It wouldn't be until the next morning that they'd suspect she might not be returning. A stray tear may have slipped from Gabrielle's eye as her steed broke into a gallop. Despite their meddling, she truly did love her parents greatly. She hated having to make them worry as they would when she vanished. Still, it was that same love for them that spurred her on, away from the comfortable life she'd known since birth. This was the only chance she had to protect them. She urged her horse to run faster. Gabrielle was not one to linger on sadness or hard decisions, so she raced forward as fast as she could to meet her future. The grave on the hill was small and simple, yet painstakingly maintained. It was marked by a modest headstone and overlooked a brook that was about an hour's walk from town. It had been one of her favorite spots. Thistle had dug the grave himself so that his wife might have a pleasant view for eternity.
"I'm afraid I won't be able to visit again for some time," he said, voice rising over the gentle lap of the water on the bank. "The winds have begun to blow again, it seems."
Thistle adjusted his stance in a vain attempt to find a comfortable way to stand on the hill's sloping surface.
"I don't want you to worry about me. I'll be safe. Grump is coming along, and so are the human pair I told you about before. They're green as a dryad's hair, but good kids overall. Who knows? We might just pull off this little charade."
The small gnome paused and looked out at the scenery. It was truly lovely here. He had hoped to be buried on this hill alongside her when his god called him home. Sadly, it wasn't looking too likely now. The only one he'd have trusted with the burial task was Grumph, and Thistle had a feeling that if he fell on their journey, Grumph and the others wouldn't be far behind.
"And if we don't," Thistle added, "then I suppose I'll be seeing you soon anyway."
Thistle gently touched his fingertips to the headstone, then shambled down the hill and began the long trek back toward town. Grumph didn't have a family in Maple Bark. He didn't have graves to visit either. The only person he truly